You keep your videos muted as we all take turns talking tonight on this big Zoom meeting. And we're just going to wait just a moment or two so that everyone can come on in and get loaded up here tonight for our 8th grade projects. And if you haven't already, you're going to want to set your Zoom tonight to speaker view, And in that way, as each 8th grader takes their turn presenting, their screen will be highlighted for you effortlessly. And that is in the upper right-hand corner where there's a little grid and it says view on it, and you can choose speaker or gallery, and you want to choose speaker view. And 8th grade, you've probably noticed everyone is muted. So when it is your turn, you can unmute yourself to present. Everyone's flowing in here. All right. Chelsea, you think we're ready? Wonderful. All right. Well, welcome family, friends, teachers, and community members. Good evening. My name is Donna Blazer. I'm the 8th grade class teacher this year. 8th grade projects, which is what you're about to see tonight, are a well-loved Cedarwood tradition. And it is a pleasure to have all of you with us here tonight to share in the experience. Students in 5th, 6th grade are commonly heard asking their teachers about the details of the 8th grade project, and ideas start forming sometimes even before 5th or 6th grade. 8th graders, can you raise your hand and give a little wave if you started thinking about what you wanted to do for this project years ago? I know some of them definitely did. For our class last year in January of our 7th grade year, we started the process of deciding and talking about all of our interests and possible project ideas at a big dinner meeting with all of the parents. We all talked about wonderful, interesting things to research and maybe different directions to go in. By spring of last year, the students were cementing ideas, moving forward with the work, because there is a number of components to the 8th grade project. The students create something new or further and deepen an existing skill. They write a research paper on a theme connected to their interest, and they craft a visual display, which you'll be seeing tonight as a slideshow. Often we have a display board when we get to be in-person learning. And of course, the students also write a speech and practice public speaking, which is what we are all about to enjoy. More than the topics the students studied or the specific components they needed to complete, these students also learned about developing and completing a long-term project that involves goal setting, creating timelines, follow through. These are just excellent skills to add to their skill set as they prepare to head off to high school next year. And you can see what high schools they're heading off to right on our Cedarwood webpage. If you click on 8th grade projects, you'll see a little list of all of the interesting high schools they've chosen to attend next year. Well, tonight we celebrate their hard work. This was time-consuming work. William Sprague once said, "Do not wait to strike till the iron is hot, but make it hot by striking." And many students felt as if they were diving into unknown waters with these projects. Others took an existing skill to a whole new depth of study, as I mentioned, but everyone had to take the leap into actual hard work. And indeed, they did make that iron hot by striking it with their commitment to the work. Students, it is this follow through and willpower that we all saw in you that I'm most proud of today. If you keep this commitment to your work ethic, you can make all your hopes and dreams come true. I'm so proud of you. I would like to wrap up by saying thank you to all the mentors and coaches of the project that are with us tonight. A whole number of adults in the community supported the students in all of the areas of study. If you are a mentor or a coach, could you right now into your Zoom screen give us a thumbs up so that we can Zoom applaud you? And if you haven't done a Zoom applause, mentors, keep those thumbs up. And we're going to give you a Zoom applause. 8th graders, show them how it's done. Thank you so much. Mentors and helpers and parent supporters, for you, I share one of my most favorite quotes, which is, "To the world, you may be only one person, but to one person, you may be the world." So thank you for your time and effort guiding these students with their work. Okay, well, tonight we're going to begin our speeches, and Adeline Kress is going to launch our evening. 2 quick notes before she begins. Remember to put that little viewer on speaker view, and also remember to stay on mute.
Okay.
And for applause tonight, we're going to give our hands in the screen applause so that we can all enjoy each other. All right, Adeline, take it away.
Hello everyone, my name is Adeline and today I will be telling you about my 8th grade project. I never thought this is how it would feel to be an 8th grader. I thought I would feel wiser and older. I also thought I would be taller. I certainly never imagined giving my speech on a Zoom call, and I definitely didn't expect to be a dancer. I remember going to see the 8th grade projects throughout my years at Cedarwood. I remember when we were done looking at them, we would always come back to the classroom and discuss what we wanted our projects to be. I remember once saying I would write a book. I remember getting into an argument with one classmate about women's rights issues. I remember one boy saying he would make the next iPhone. What I don't remember is ever thinking my project would have anything to do with film. Those who were seen dancing were often thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Friedrich Nietzsche. I started dancing casually when I was in 3rd grade, 1 hip hop class a week. In 7th grade, I came to my current studio and started taking classes more seriously. Raise your hand if you have ever been to see a ballet. I'm sure there was a beautiful ballerina spinning around on toe shoes and lots of different characters and scenes, and I'm sure it was perfect. But that's not what ballet is. That's just the finished product. Since the end of 7th grade, I have been working on a documentary for my 8th grade project. I chose to make this documentary about dance because I dance 11 hours a week. It's my social life, so I figured it could be my project as well. One of the most stressful moments while working on this project was when I was interviewing a little girl. I kept asking her lots of questions, and all she would do was look at me with a wide-eyed expression like I was speaking in tongues. Making this documentary was a challenge in so many ways, and I really enjoyed it. It was especially stressful because I had to figure out how to create something completely new with virtually no support. Luckily, with some help from my family, I was able to figure it out and even managed to make a website so that my documentary would be more accessible to all. My initial goal was to show the behind the scenes of ballet. Dance is such a sugar-coated art form. Without proper experience, all you see is the final result. It's so much dedication and hard work, and it's so tiring, not to mention the mental strain. But recently I realized something. No matter what happens, through quarantine and just plain growing up, dance is something that will always be there for me. And that's what I wanted to show through this project. I hope that through watching my documentary, people will see dance for what it really is, a beautiful art form that requires a lifetime of dedication and hard work. Dance is something I couldn't live without. It's emotional and it's physical. It's beautiful, and to me, it's worth every second. Lyle Watson said, "Dancing is surely the most basic and relevant of all forms of expression." End quote. And no matter what the future holds, I'm glad to have danced it all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adeline. Incredible. Wonderful job. Thank you everyone for joining me with a Zoom applause there. That looked great. I hope, Adeline, did you get to see all the hands? Don't forget to take a breath now.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. Take it away, Esty.
Hello, my name is Esther Bengal. I'm 14 years old and an 8th grader at Cedarwood Waldorf School. Today I will be teaching you all about the fast fashion industry. I want you all to look down at your outfits today and see how many pieces of clothing are from brands like H&M, Zara, Gap, Forever 21, or other brands like these. If you're wearing something like this, which most of you likely are, my top is in fact from H&M, so no shame. You're wearing what's known as fast fashion. Fast fashion is defined as inexpensive clothing produced rapidly by mass market retailers in response to the latest trends. We all buy fast fashion. It's the easiest, the cheapest, the fastest. Seems like a good deal, even a great deal. We get cheap, fashionable clothes and people across the world get jobs. Seems ideal, right? But it is not that simple. The fast fashion industry is destroying our planet and its people. The time to take action is now. Some could say I have a passion for fashion. I love the colors, the designs, the coordinations. But not until I embarked on this project did I truly understand the real impact of the fashion industry. That it is not only beautiful models, expensive clothing, and lush colors. It is so much more. This often glamorous side of the industry that we all know and maybe love is not the side that most of the world experiences. They see sweatshops, low wages, dangerous working conditions, pollution, and child labor. They see fast fashion. One of the biggest environmental issues we are facing today is water pollution. The fashion industry is responsible for 20% of the world's water pollution. In many developing countries that house large parts of the clothing production industry, the rivers are so polluted that they run vividly colorful with dyes from the clothing that you're wearing right now. And think about this. To make one t-shirt, it takes 2,700 liters of water. This is enough fresh water for one person to drink for 900 days. And to wash one shirt, it takes 40 gallons of water. So if you're washing your favorite t-shirt multiple times a week, you're using hundreds of gallons of water. Luckily, there's a simple way to solve this problem. Instead of using the drying machine, just hang your t-shirt out to dry. This is already reducing 1/3 of your shirt's carbon footprint. Pretty simple, right? But there are parts of your shirt's footprint that are harder to reduce, like the fact that fashion is one of the biggest contributors to plastic pollution in our oceans. The majority of our clothing is made of synthetic fabrics, aka plastics. Tiny strands of fabric that come off of fabrics like polyester and nylon are known as synthetic microfibers. These microfibers take 500 plus years to decompose. But do not despair. We have an answer to this humanitarian crisis, and it's Gen Z. We have created a huge trend in thrifting. More than 40% of Gen Z now thrifts. And by no means am I telling you to stop buying all fast fashion and shop 100% ethically, because though this is the goal, it can be very difficult and sometimes expensive. What I'm telling you to do is just think about it. Next time you walk into a mall or open up your computer to buy a new top, look at it and think. Think about the millions of Bangladeshi girls working all day long for 1/8 of what you earn. Think about the children in factories across the world who made that top. Ask yourself if a $20 top can pay someone a livable wage and keep a building in good repair. Wonder if that top is worth someone's basic humanitarian rights and our planet's rights. I hope that after listening to this speech it is, and you will close your laptop or put down your top and walk out of that store. For my physical 8th grade project, I designed in 100% designed, photographed, and styled a 100% ethically sourced fashion magazine. I avoided the fast fashion industry completely. I did this by buying vintage, buying from thrift stores, buying from small and ethical businesses, and buying from online marketplaces like Depop. My goal was to create outfits that were fashionable, kept up the trends, good quality, and most important, ethically sourced. Through the designing of this magazine, I encountered many ups and downs, learned many lessons, but mostly became more aware of what's going on in the world and more aware of my own consumption habits. I learned that you don't have to shop fast fashion to be stylish and that slow fashion can be affordable. In many cases, even more affordable. I mean, think about it. If you were to walk into a Zara, the average price for a top would probably be around $36. And maybe you'd have 3 options to choose from. But walking into a Goodwill, the average price for a white blouse is probably around $6, and you probably have at least 43 options. You're saving yourself around $30, plus you're helping to put an end to the ongoing consumerism cycle in fashion. Another plus to shopping ethical is how it makes you feel. When you do something wrong or immoral, it weighs on your conscience. So buying ethically feels the same as when you donate to a charity. You can know that even though it was small, you just helped someone and something. You just helped us to take a step towards change. Thank you.
Incredible, Esty. Wonderful. Cheers to you. Zoom applause for you. Wonderful. And we pass the torch to Elsa.
Hello, my name is Elsa, and I'm going to be talking about the art of photography. Have you ever stumbled upon a picture of your old class from middle school? For my project, I wanted to create something that would be memorable for our class since it's our last year together. A book of portraits. COVID made it difficult to get together, but I learned a lot this year. I had two mentors. The first, a professional photographer. She taught me about the composition of a photograph, which is how to organize the objects in a frame. We talked about the history of the first camera and printed image, and she gave me great resources to look into for my paper. My second mentor, my uncle, taught me how to use my camera and assess my photographs. After I'd done a photo shoot, either of nature or people, he gave me tips and ideas on how to make my photographs better. While researching early cameras and the evolution of the printed image, I saw a lot of famous photographs. Each photographer I researched had their own way of organizing and taking their photographs. They were very inspiring and opened my eyes to different angles, the idea of spontaneous images, having your camera ready to capture something interesting, and pose shots. Most people have easy access to an automatic camera. It lines up the shot and adjusts everything to make the photograph look professional. But early photographs took up to 1 minute to capture, and the image would most likely come out blurry, because it's difficult to sit still for 60 seconds. I chose to learn how to manually set my camera. At first, taking a photograph seemed simple. You turn on the camera, line up the shot, and snap the picture. I learned that it's actually quite complicated. In order to take a good picture, you need to set the correct shutter speed, check your lighting and focus before you look at composition. You can use lighting in so many different ways, a softer look or layered look with shadows. Always make sure the object or person is the center of attention and not distracted by objects around it. Then figure out what angle you want. You could make people look smaller or taller depending on your perspective. Next, you take the picture. Until now, I haven't taken full advantage of owning nice cameras, and my project made me realize how lucky I am. Annie Leibowitz says, "When I say I want to photograph someone, what it really means is that I like to know them. Anyone I know I photograph." When I began taking photographs of people, I found it difficult to tell the person what to do, how to pose, or to pose at all. Instructing my friends as to what I thought looked good was important. If you want a candid shot, make jokes with them and talk about silly memories. That way they feel more comfortable. I look forward to continuing my idea and photographing my classmates this summer using the skills I learned. And this is my completed project, a book of photos. Thank you.
Outstanding, Elsa. Outstanding. Zoom applause for you. Wonderful job. All right, Luca, take it away.
Good evening. I'm going to start by asking you a few rhetorical questions. How many times do you think you are lied to every day? What do you think? 10, 20, maybe 30? Well, a study conducted in 2018 shows that number is actually around 200. 200 lies every day. Look around. The people sitting next to you lie to you every day without a second thought. Today I'm going to tell you about a man who manipulated the blind trust of anyone he could get his hands on. A man who abused the system for personal gain, bankrupting whole charities, retirement accounts, and even Holocaust survivors. That man's name is Bernie Madoff. When Bernie Madoff was old enough to get a trading license, he opened a small brokerage on Wall Street. He was a charmer and worked his way up quickly. His legitimate stock trading business at its peak was making around $100 million a year before starting to even dabble in fraud. When I was first learning about him, I wondered why a man making over $100 million a year would want more money. Well, historians, teachers, and psychologists believe Madoff wanted a thrill. He was bored. And as we are told by our parents, we'll find something to do when we're bored. I guess this is what his brain found, a multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is an investment scheme where you tell the investors they'll get a certain amount of income back, just right so it's believable, but not really possible. People start to invest and they don't cash out because they're making so much money. And for the small number that do decide to cash out, you pay them with some of the money coming in from new investors. For the investors, it looks like Madoff is a wizard of the market, but in reality, the money never leaves his account. If a con artist does it correctly, more money comes in than leaves, and you get to keep the leftovers. Like the old idiom, you rob Peter to pay Paul. This slide shows how a Ponzi scheme spreads, where the orchestrator at the top will tell a few people who might tell a few other people through gossip, and it just kind of trails down and gets larger and larger. A Ponzi scheme can be any size, but the reasons Madoff's is so famous is that it's so outlandishly big, it seems impossible. And in fact, it would have been impossible if he hadn't used computers in a creative way, developing an algorithm that could automate his con, leaving almost no work for him. The environment that a con man thrives in is a place where a shift is happening, where the people aren't sure what their day-to-day looks like. The shift Madoff took advantage of was the introductions of computers to the world of Wall Street. Just a few decades ago, trades were made on paper and could take hours. When computers were introduced, the technology was limited, but was able to automate little things that made all the difference. I built a computer that is pretty close to as good as it gets for a consumer as my project. As I was deciding what to do for my project, our school had just gone online. The computer I had pre-pandemic wasn't nearly as powerful, and instead of buying a mid-level PC that would only last a few years, I decided to go bigger. I started researching the best parts to buy and learned how to assemble them. I spent about a month deciding how much money I wanted to spend and on what. I had never spent this much money before, so I was hesitant, but I found a balance that I liked. I gathered my money together and figured out how much I needed to earn. I got my dad to hire me to sand our fence. I sold seltzer to people at the park on hot days and sold a small portion of my magic cards. After a while, I met my goal. This is when I found my mentor, Brian, Quinn's father. I wouldn't have been able to do this project without him, and I owe him a debt of gratitude. Thank you, Brian. He dedicated his time and looked over my part choices. He agreed with my choices, but recommended I buy a different SSD, which is a faster type of hard drive. I ordered my parts and then became glued to UPS tracking websites. When the parts all finally arrived, Brian and I Zoomed, and he answered any questions I had while building. Here's a few photos I took the day I was building my computer. You can see Brian on my computer through Zoom. When it was done, I powered it up and saw the fans come alive. The lights turned on. It was really an exciting moment. It had worked. I had built a computer. Here's a picture of my whole setup now. It worked amazingly. It opened instantly and ran everything I needed to use in maximum speed. Owning it has made the pandemic one of the most enjoyable years of my life. I've been able to play video games with my friends, which make it feel like I still have a social connection, and I've even met new people online who I've become friends with. It's been my ticket to fun during the pandemic. In a world where technology is becoming more and more widespread than ever before, the skills I gained during this process will become useful for years to come. In fact, the largest event of 2020 was a Travis Scott concert inside the game of Fortnite. New technology makes it so you can move your in-game character in any way you please, so it almost feels like you're there. An event like this allows for the viewer to be moved around in ways that are impossible in real life. You can add effects like being launched around, riding a roller coaster, or flying through space. Over 15 million people were watching in-game, and 7 million were watching on Twitch, a streaming platform. Over 22 million people attended. That's just crazy. Maybe someone's working out a way to con them all right now. Just 1 year ago, I was stressed about how I was going to get my paper done and worried I wasn't going to be able to finish my project in time. Now, a year later, I've written a 20-page paper about an infamous con man, built a high-speed computer, and started a faux stock portfolio. I'm so glad I chose the project I did, because if I hadn't, I would have had a hard year. The learning experience this has given me may be one of the most useful things I've learned my whole life. And my new skills won't hurt either.
Fantastic, Luca. Oh, wonderful. Really wonderful. Wonderful job. And Mira, you're up.
Hi, I'm Mira Stevens. I'm 14. I've been going to Cedarwood since 6th grade, and I'm doing my project on anxiety and depression in teens. How many of you have felt sad or anxious or super unmotivated? I would guess that all of you have, especially after the year we've had. Now imagine having all these emotions every day in a way where it's like you're in a fog and you can't see the light. I know this is not the most fun thing to imagine, but a big part of why I chose this project was because I wanted to bring awareness to something that more and more teens are dealing with every year. Anxiety and depression is a big deal with many stigmas around them that we need to break. We all need to work together to make mental health normalized in the US so people can get the help without feeling like it's wrong. Anxiety and depression are the two most common mental illnesses facing teens today. These disorders are widespread amongst all parts of society. Anxiety and depression are both actual brain functions. For anxiety, it's when your frontal lobe, which makes your decisions, turns off. This leaves you just functioning on fight or flight. For depression, it's an imbalance of brain chemicals. It's not something someone chooses. It is important that we address this issue because the rates of suicide over the years has also risen. In just the past year, suicide rates in teens ages 15 through 19 has risen by 32%. I found a quote by J.K. Rowling that kind of sums it up for me. It's difficult to describe depression to someone who's never been there because it's not sadness. I know sadness. Sadness is to cry and to feel, but it's the cold absence of feeling, that really hollowed out feeling. I've had anxiety and depression throughout my life, and it has definitely kept me from doing things I may have otherwise done. My triggers have mostly been about getting sick. My family called it the throw-up bully. It kept me from doing normal kid stuff easily. Whenever anyone said they were sick, which was normal for kids, it made me feel sick too. One of the interesting things about anxiety is that it's genetic. Kids are more likely to have anxiety if their parents have had anxiety or panic attacks. It is great to talk to your children about your experience. Make them feel okay to talk to you about theirs so they don't feel alone. I made a website for my physical project that dives deeper into ways to treat anxiety and depression and ways to stop. In COVID, isolation has been a big deal for teens. In some countries in Europe, it's easier for teens to get treatment. And in COVID, many of their psychiatric wards are filling up and people are getting help. In the US, there's not as many people getting help, but just as many people thinking of suicide. Some of these countries don't even think that it's something that needs treatment. With teens feeling the weight of what they've had to give up to keep older, more at-risk people safe, they feel like they are missing milestones. As COVID continues, people are calling it a mental health pandemic. I know it's hard for lots of parents to think about their kids not being the happiest in the world. I get it. When I tell my mom how I'm unhappy or don't want to do anything, she wants to fix it and make everything as easy as possible for me. We all have learned that that is not always the best path forward. This is great if your kid is anxious or sad, but not if they have actual anxiety or depression. It can be very hard to get therapy for a teen because lots of insurance don't even cover it. But that is something that needs to change so anyone can get help. There are lots of treatments and therapy has worked for me because it's someone I can talk to that's not your parent. And remember, if you want to know more, go to my website. I wanted to do my report on anxiety and depression because I wanted to understand why I, as a teen, did not want to do things I used to love to do. It was hard and frustrating for me. It made it really hard for my family and friends to hang out with me. I wanted to be able to really understand why I felt this way. I wanted people to feel free to share how they feel without all the stigmas around mental health. People think it's like sadness, where you can smile or laugh and you'll feel better. They think you can turn it off, or you're just being a teen and exaggerating. This is not true. People with depression and anxiety don't want to feel down or stressed. Of course, it's different for every single person, but most people want to do the things they used to love to do. Thank you.
Incredible, Mira. Absolutely incredible. Wonderful. Zoom applause for Mira. Oh, these are going so incredibly. I'm so pleased, grade 8. This is just flowing along beautifully. You are doing incredible job. Don't forget to roll your shoulders back and take a deep breath because you're doing incredible. All right, Chloe, take it away.
Imagine a cup without coffee, a garden without flowers, or a plate without food. This would be the state of our world without pollinators. Pollinators play a vital role in the health of the planet and in our everyday lives. Hello, my name is Chloe Rochelle, and the single most important thing I want to share with you today is that the world's pollinators are in trouble, and that there are actions we can all take to promote and protect them, because, quite literally, our lives and ecosystems depend on it. From the time I was little, I have loved being in nature. I was drawn to all the different shapes, sizes, colors, and scents of the flowers. Some of my earliest memories are of my mom taking me to smell the roses in a park near our apartment and to the botanical gardens in Los Angeles, where I lived until I was 2. My inspiration for this project came from a visit to the Chicago Botanical Gardens with my grandparents. An exhibit highlighting the many pollinators beyond bees got me interested in learning more about them and inspired me to plant my own pollinator garden. So, what is a pollinator? Simply put, a pollinator is an animal that moves pollen from the male part of the flower to the female part of the same or another flower. When most people think of pollinators, they most likely think of bees. And while they are arguably the most important pollinator, there are over 200,000 different species of them. These include invertebrates such as beetles, ants, flies, butterflies, and bees, and vertebrates such as hummingbirds and small mammals like mice and bats. The interesting thing about pollination is that it's not an intentional act by a pollinator, but rather a happy accident. As pollinators feed, pollen from a flower rubs or drops onto the pollinator. Then, the pollinator unknowingly carries it to another flower of the same species, and voila, the act of pollination has occurred. While pollination is not a deliberate act by a pollinator, the ways plants attract pollinators are very deliberate. Plants rely on pollinators to reproduce, so they've evolved to become more attractive and appealing to them. The perfume scents of a flower are carried by the wind, attracting distant pollinators, while the shape, color, and patterns serve as additional cues. As a reward for visiting their flowers, plants provide pollinators with pollen or nectar. While the act of pollination may seem small and last mere seconds, its impact is mighty. The human race and all of Earth's terrestrial ecosystems depend on pollination for their survival. Pollinators are responsible for one in every 3 bites of food we eat daily. Pollinator-dependent foods contain many essential nutrients, such as vitamin A, vitamin C, and folic acid, needed to maintain a healthy diet. In addition, many plants grown for fibers, spices, oils, and medicines need to be pollinated in order to reproduce the products on which we rely. Presently, the world's pollinators are facing a myriad of threats. These include the loss of habitat and food resources, climate change, pollution, and the overuse of pesticides. Pollinator populations worldwide are in decline, and we need to act now. Science is trying to tackle the problems pollinators are facing on a macro level, but the power to make a difference really lies with all of us. And while it's easy to feel powerless, I'm here to tell you that there is hope. We can all take simple steps to help pollinators. So, what can we do? First and foremost, whether it be a decorative planter, window box, or designated area in your yard, plant for pollinators. Keep in mind that pollinators need to be supported throughout the seasons, not just spring and summer. This means choosing a variety of flowers that will bloom from early spring into late fall. Help pollinators find their food source. Whenever possible, plant in clusters of 3 or 4 instead of single plants. The larger grouping acts as a target for pollinators to locate them. Go native. Use plants that are native to your region, as they are the most beneficial to native pollinators. Non-native plants can have insufficient amounts of pollen and nectar, and in some cases may not be edible to butterfly and moth caterpillars. Pollinators need water too. Finding a clean, dependable source of water can be hard for pollinators, especially in urban and suburban areas. Placing a shallow basin of water with stones and marbles on which they can rest while drinking is a great way to support pollinators. Go wild. If possible, let a part of your backyard literally go wild. Wooded areas, hedgerows, and unmowed lawns provide much needed food, shelter, and nesting areas for pollinators. Even something as small as tolerating dandelions and clover between mowing can be tremendously beneficial. Resist the urge to tidy up in late fall and early spring. Many pollinators overwinter in dead leaves and hollowed out stems. Eliminate or minimize pesticide use. Bottom line, pesticides endanger pollinators. If you must, spray them at night when pollinators are least active. If you are interested in learning more about pollinators and what you can do for them, two of my favorite resources are the Xerces Society and the Pollinator Partnership. They are two great organizations that promote and protect pollinators. In closing, I'd like to thank my Nana who sent plant starts from her garden in Buffalo, New York, all the way to Portland, and who was a continual source of inspiration and support. I would also like to thank my parents who supported me throughout this project. And lastly, I'd like to thank all of you for listening. I hope I've inspired you to become more active in supporting pollinators in your garden and beyond. Thank you.
Incredible, Chloe. Way to go. Zoom applause for Chloe. Wonderful job. And Anya, take it away.
Hi, my name is Okay. Hi, my name is Anya and I'm 14 years old. Today I'll be sharing with you about fashion design. I would like you to first think and see if there's a time you pictured an outfit or piece of clothing or maybe even an accessory in your head. Now, if you want to go try to find and buy that item, were you successful? Some of you may have been, and others may have found something close to what they were thinking about. This will happen to me quite often, and usually I can't find exactly what I'm looking for. That is what is so great about fashion design. You can design whatever you want and add in the smallest details, because sometimes it's the small things that matter to you. For my 8th grade project, I designed and created a coat. When designing something, you will first need to decide this is not moving. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with the slides.
You could try scrolling down, maybe.
Yep. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, sorry.
Anya, it's no problem at all. Take a breath and roll your shoulders back and just carry right on. You are doing great.
Okay, when designing something, you'll first need to decide what you're making and find a pattern for it, unless you're making a pattern. If you're making a pattern, you'll probably want to have a piece of clothing that you're basing it off of to help you. After choosing or making a pattern, you need to find the fabric. You want to go into a fabric store so you can choose the fabric, so you can feel the texture and weight. You'll of course need a sewing machine to sew your project together, but make sure you know how to use it or have someone to help you. I'll admit that this process can be long and difficult and isn't necessarily for everyone. My design changed throughout time and I had to adjust many things to make it work. In 1943, the first ever Fashion Week was held in New York. It only had one purpose, and that was to give fashion buyers alternatives to French fashion during World War II, when workers in the fashion industry were unable to travel to Paris. Until 1994, shows were held in different locations, such as hotels or lofts. There are 40 fashion weeks and 100 official events. The 5 most prominent fashion weeks are held in the fashion capitals of the world: Milan, New York, Berlin, London, and Paris. One of the most famous fashion designers in history is Coco Chanel. Even those who have no special interest in the fashion world probably know who she is. She was a true catalyst for the entire fashion industry. All the events in Coco Chanel's life very directly impacted her designs, which led to some of the biggest changes in the fashion industry. It would be pretty hard to dispute the claim that Coco Chanel is the most famous fashion designer in history, her reputation outstripping rivals such as Dior and Balenciaga. I have found that fashion design takes a lot of trial and error, and you have to be able to go with the flow. Although there are some of these struggles that I've come across with fashion design, there are also many upsides. For example, some days you work on a project and you will get to a very satisfying point in it. My favorite day of working on my project was when I had enough of my coat put together that I could put it on and have an idea of what it would look like finished. Looking back on my work and process, I think there are 3 really important things to keep in mind. 1, you need to be able to change your design and go with the flow. This is so important because if you can't accept that things are going to change, you'll end up getting very frustrated. The second is that you need to be willing to let people help you and give you suggestions. Maybe this isn't super hard for some people, but for me it is. And I can't tell you how much it helped once I accepted that it was okay to let other people help me. The last thing is you have to be prepared to give your project time. While all designs take different amounts of time, I can tell you that almost nothing will be as fast as you think. If you keep these 3 tips in mind, I think anyone who wanted to could design and create clothing with a little help. Thank you.
Wonderful, Anya. Really good job. Absolutely fantastic. Zoom applause for Anya. And I just want to take a quick, brief moment. Guests, we do have about 4 of you that are unmuted, and it would so help if we could all mute our microphones. It will just stop those teeny tiny little noises from creeping in with 145 of us in the same room. So if you wouldn't mind checking, I think we're just catching those little mutes right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
also Mira's in the waiting room, I think.
oh, we actually don't have a waiting room right now. But I will go check that. Thank you. All right. Okay, Anya, amazing job. Duncan, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Take it away.
All righty. Let's get the screen share set up. Okay. Good evening, Cedarwood Waldorf School and visitors. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Duncan McClellan. I'm 14 years old and I've attended Cedarwood Waldorf School since I was 5. And this is my 8th grade speech. Never would I have ever thought, even a couple years ago, that at the age of 13, I would have the ability, the skill, and the opportunity to release music on all large streaming platforms, such as Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon Music. For my 8th grade project, I've studied and dedicated half of my 8th grade year to learning about the sound of music, the process of making music, the dedication of that process, and the lesson of never giving up a dream. Hold on, there it goes. My musical journey started at a very young age. Let's travel back to the year 2015. At the age of 8, I was already playing drums in my quote band Pick and Sticks with my lifelong friend, Cassidy Porto. I honestly owe a lot of my musical talents and interests to Cassidy. He has helped me find my musical talents and has encouraged me through the years with everything. Even to this day, I still play music with Cassidy and enjoy and love every moment of doing so. Cassidy and I have played in front of 3 main audiences. At Swallowtail Waldorf School's barn, on a corner at the popular Mississippi Street Fair in Portland, Oregon, and at 4th of July, Oregon, with nearly 100 people watching and listening. As I've been growing up, music has always been extremely important and something that has always been dear to me. I kind of use music as an escape, whether that be an escape from reality to sort of enter my own little world or to relieve me of stress or anxiety that I'm dealing with. Some of the artists that have helped me achieve this are Fish, Paul Simon, The Grateful Dead, The Beatles, 21 Pilots, Cavetown, Milky Chance, and a small artist from the Netherlands, Blanks. I also owe my father for a lot of my musical talent. He has always been there and encouraged me to strive to be something great. My father, Eric, and I have played a lot of music together, which for me has built the building blocks for performing music. At a very young age, my father taught me to play the drums, both acoustic hand drums and on a drum set. Recently, I've learned to play more string instruments, such as the guitar, ukulele, bass guitar, and also the viola. Knowing how to play this wide variety of instruments only broadens my abilities for making music and setting me up for success. So, pat on the back to my past self.
You're not muted, Mom.
Now, let's look at more recent Duncan and where he's at. I've now released 1 album out into the world. The first album I had released was Young Love in August 2020. I made this album during quarantine, frankly, because I was bored, and the only thing else to do was homework. And if you know me, I'm not such a big fan of homework. I recorded this album in my bedroom studio, which is basically just a corner of my bedroom with my computer and mic. You can see this on the left side of the slide. In that picture, I have a lot more equipment than I did recording Young Love. When I started recording, I recorded all the instruments and vocals from the built-in microphone on my computer. I use Garageband to produce and mix my songs. Garageband is a free built-in software that comes with all Apple devices for small creators like me to make music easily. So for my 8th grade project, I wanted to tie in with this music theme. So I made a guitar pedal, which I can use in my next album and music projects in the future. For those of you who don't know what a guitar pedal is, it's a box of components that can dramatically change or alter the sound of my electric guitar or bass with just the press of a button. I've been wanting a guitar pedal for quite a while now, so I figured, why not make my own? This is also very convenient because one of my father's best friends, Mr. Brian Coates, who's my mentor for this project, knows how to make guitar pedals and has been doing so for many years now. Making a guitar pedal requires various electrical components, such as transistors, resistors, capacitors, and basic soldering skills. Some of these are very small and delicate and often require some sort of magnification device to install properly. With all the components placed in the proper order and with the correct connections, one can make an awesome distortion pedal that cannot be produced through a basic guitar or bass amp. Now, I'm almost done. I need to box up this wired mess of components. I was looking around for a while for the perfect box until I found it, a vintage juicy fruit tin. My perf board fit perfectly into this box. I drilled 2 holes into the sides for my input and output cable, and then I plugged it in for the first time. The distortion roared from my pedal as it played AC/DC's Back in Black. After making this pedal, I've acquired basic skills of electric engineering, which now assist me if I want to do more electric music projects in the future. So, I know I'm short on time today, but the reason I chose to talk about this topic for my 8th grade speech is to prove that if you truly have a passion for something, go for it and follow your dreams and make it happen. I feel my story is a very good example of that. I hope this speech was an inspiration to you, especially if you needed it. I'm so thankful for many things, but especially for my family, Mr. Brian Coates, my mentor, and Mr. Brandon and Miss Laura for their continued support and generosity. I would not be here today if it wasn't for you. There are a lot of people who believe in me and who are rooting for my future success, so thank you. I'm now going to end the speech with one of my favorite lyrics from one of my favorite bands, Fish. Set the gear shift for the high gear of your soul, because you got to run like an antelope out of control. Thank you.
Wonderful. Absolutely incredible, Duncan.
Oh, thank you.
Big Zoom cheers and applause for Duncan. Wonderful. Anne Hain, welcome to the stage.
Look on the bright side. It's only 5 words, but as short as those words may be, they can change the minds of everyone around you. My name is Hain Kim. I am 14 years old, and I'm here to share with you how I was able to combine my love for art with my interest in psychology to help find the positives when you feel stressed. We all know about teenagers, whether you used to be one, will be one in a few years, or, like me, are one right now. When you're a teenager, you can often feel anxious, depressed, and overworked. But why? I decided to take it into my own hands to research adolescent psychology and find ways to take a moment when you feel frustrated and turn it into a positive situation. As I researched, I read about these 2 fancy little words called cognitive functions. Cognitive functions are functions that occur in your brain unknowingly that shape your sense of reasoning as well as your morals. Some functions we use in our day-to-day lives include problem solving, decision making, and memory. The interesting thing was that certain areas of cognitive development seemed to spike at the early stages of adolescence, such as the understanding of puns and sarcasm. Gen Z teenagers, on multiple accounts, have been known to experience the highest levels of stress. Even so, there's things you can do to help calm yourself, such as exercising, engaging in a sport or creative activity, as well as maintaining a healthy sleeping schedule and diet. Art is an extremely important part of my life. It's how I personally de-stress, and it's where I can unleash all my creativity to create something I never could have imagined. So, by putting 2 and 2 together, for my physical project, I decided to create a comic. A comic about a group of teenagers making the best of negative moments, developing their cognitive functions, and looking on the bright side. Creating the characters and applying what I learned to the plot was my favorite part of this project. The main character in this story is Saya, who is introduced by Kilka to a new group of friends who don't seem to be getting along all that well. Everyone ends up confessing their worries to Saya, but instead of getting annoyed, she works to resolve everyone's problems by empathizing with them. By helping everyone find the silver lining in their worries, Saya is able to overcome her own worry of not having friends. After working with my mentor, Garrett, to format my comic, it was time to make all 40 pages digital. This process was an almost meditative time for me, being able to just sit down and immerse myself into the world I created. About the time I was a fourth of the way through, my motivation fell low. I wanted to go back to my earlier pages because I felt like I could do so much better. Taking a moment to think, I asked myself, what was my project even about in the first place? It was about looking on the bright side. By reflecting on this thought, I realized that I created 30 pages of art and that I only had 10 more to go. In November, after 5 months of drafting, drawing, and digitally rendering, I was able to hold a copy of my comic in my very own hands. That moment brought me so much pride and joy. I'd achieved my dream and discovered a newfound passion for adolescent psychology to go along with it. So, the next time you're stressing about work that's due tomorrow, ask yourself, how can I look on the bright side? Thank you.
Absolutely incredible, Hayne. Wonderful. And here's our Zoom applause for you. Oh, I hope you're all feeling your good Zoom applause. Wonderful work. And Zella, welcome.
Hi, my name is Zella Coughlin. I am 14 years old and have lived in Portland, Oregon for my whole life. For my 8th grade project, I dove into skincare, its history, and the properties of natural ingredients. When I was a baby, I was an extremely messy eater. Every meal was a guaranteed mess, and somehow food would make its way to the tip of my nose and the roots of my hair. I've never been uncomfortable with food on my face, and given the fact that most ingredients I put in my recipes today are just items I find in my kitchen, shows that that level of comfort stuck around. Thankfully, I'm not as messy of an eater now, but I credit some of my love of skincare, especially face masks, to when I was. Learning about the properties of different ingredients and applying them to my face and any willing volunteers is a creative outlet for me, as well as a way to de-stress and relax. Whenever I take a moment to wash my face or put on a face mask, I immediately feel more productive. There are so many aspects of life that are outside of my control, and for a lot of teenagers, we're in the middle of figuring out who we are, what we enjoy, and what we love about ourselves. Unfortunately, many insecurities appear during this time as well. Skin conditions, for example acne, can be a huge source of insecurity for many people, but it doesn't have to be. The health and outward appearance of our skin can greatly benefit from skincare and consistency. The hardest part of this project for me was writing my essay. My research topic was skincare then and now, a deep study of the history of ancient skincare highlighting ancient Greece, Egypt, China, and Korea. I also researched and included a teen-specific section, the industry behind the products, and the importance of skincare in our modern world. Throughout my writing process, I struggled with overcoming perfectionism and developing time management skills. For the physical component of my project, I created a prototype for a skincare starter kit designed by me. It is complete with a booklet showcasing ingredients and their properties, as well as some recipes inspired from what I learned of ancient skincare. My prototype box also includes samples of ingredients so people can experiment mixing and matching as they like. My goal for this project is to encourage, inspire, and inform others to have fun taking care of their skin. In the future, I hope to turn my prototype into a real product and sell it on a website like Etsy. Things you might overlook in your kitchen or imagine are strictly for consumption actually have incredible benefits and properties if topically applied to your face. For example, my favorite ingredient to put in my masks is coconut oil. It has so many exciting properties. To name a few, it deeply and thoroughly hydrates, reduces inflammation, and has acne-fighting bacteria, so it helps me with managing breakouts. My favorite face mask that I make includes, of course, coconut oil, honey, and coffee grounds. The honey cleans your pores and draws moisture from the air into your skin for extra hydration. The coffee beans have less known properties, but they complete the mask by adding its signature smell and an exfoliation factor. In simpler terms, when the grounds massage against your face, they rid it of dead skin cells and other gunk. Throughout this project, I have developed a better understanding of my skin and was able to look deeper into a passion of mine. I'm proud of myself and my class for finally taking part in the 8th grade project that I have, for one, have pondered what I would do for the last 8 years. This past year of online school has been lonely and challenging. This project really helped me connect back to the parts and traditions of Cedarwood I thought my class would miss out on entirely. I want to thank my mentor, Becca. Your feedback and suggestions for my essay were really helpful, and your knowledge as an entrepreneur and small business owner selling handmade products is really inspiring to me. I also thank my parents and my sister Ruby for their advice, support, enthusiasm, patient editing, and modeling. My biggest takeaway from this project is to not overlook your skin. It is your biggest organ, your primary protection from the outside conditions of the world, and can reflect how often you take care of yourself. The practice of skincare has a rich history and a dramatic industry, and I had a lot of fun learning about both. I encourage you to try out some DIY recipes of your own in your kitchen. Good luck, and thank you for listening.
Wonderful. Absolutely outstanding, Zella. We have some Zoom applause for you. Wonderful, wonderful work. And take it away, Anne.
Children halfway across the world eat corn paste and bananas. They sleep on wood planks and are forced to make chocolate for us to enjoy. Hi, my name's Anne. Tonight, I'm going to tell you why the chocolate industry is not so sweet. Last year, when I started my 8th grade project, I thought slavery was a thing from the past, and I didn't know that it still existed in the world today. I could have never imagined the dark truth that the chocolate industry is trying to hide. How did child labor start? When I began my project, this is what I wanted to figure out. Chocolate is grown in many tropical regions, but mostly in West Africa, in the countries of Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. In the 1900s, Côte d'Ivoire was one of the most prosperous nations in West Africa. But in 1993, Henry Bedi, a cruel dictator, rose to power. He made the value of cacao drop, so farmers could not afford to pay their workers. This is when child labor in the chocolate industry began. Today, Côte d'Ivoire is a very poor country with a corrupt government. Many children grow up surrounded by poverty and don't have access to education. They become child laborers. Some are as young as 5 years old. Child labor is not chores after school or a part-time job. It's work that deprives children of education and harms them, both physically and mentally. These children use machetes, chainsaws, and harmful chemicals. They have to carry bags of cacao that could be twice their weight. Without an education, children on cacao farms have little likelihood of ever breaking the cycle of poverty. On average, Americans eat 10 pounds of chocolate each year. This is equivalent to 87 Snicker bars. However, despite producing most of the world's cacao, Africans only account for 50% of the chocolate consumed annually. This means that many people who work on cacao farms never get to try the final product. I know this all sounds very bad, but there are organizations and foundations that are trying to help, such as Fair Trade and the Rainforest Alliance. Fair Trade wants farmers to unite and form a cooperative. This is more profitable than working on your own. Fair Trade also gives farmers a little money to put aside. This is called the Fair Trade Premium. I think it is amazing that with this money, farmers have been able to build schools, get clean water, and much more. Rainforest Alliance is a nonprofit organization working to build alliances between agriculture, forests, and business. Most cacao grown in West Africa is grown by farmers who struggle with the effects of climate change. Hotter temperatures mean unpredictable rainfall and a shift in growing seasons. Many farmers have started cutting down forests and using harmful pesticides. This is leading to chemical runoff and affecting many animals and people. The next time you take a bite of chocolate, think for a minute. Where did the cacao for that chocolate originate? Most cacao is imported from West Africa, where slavery and child labor are ways of life. You could be eating a product that was collected by a 7-year-old boy who at this moment is being beaten because he's not working hard enough. Many of us consume a lot of chocolate, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we should all do our part to end child labor by buying products that are certified fair trade or Rainforest Alliance. Thank you.
Incredible, Anne. Wonderful job. Wonderful. And your Zoom applause. Everyone giving Anne their Zoom applause there. Thank you. Oh, incredible. All right, Orion, take it away.
Sorry, 1 second. I need to set it up.
No problem. Let me know if you need it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Orion Costello. I'm 14. I've been attending Cedarwood Waldorf School for 9 years. And today I'm going to tell you about my 8th grade project. Have you ever seen any advanced tech and wished you could make something like it? If you answered yes, then we're in the same boat. I also have seen many things like this, such as robots or RC cars, and wished I could make them myself, but they seem too advanced. Well, today I'm going to tell you how I made something that when I was younger, I thought was way over my head. When I first started my project, my idea was to use a few woodworking skills that I had acquired in the past to make a table or chair or something out of wood. Well, due to my terribly short attention span, I soon lost interest in this project, only a couple of months before the final version was due. So I put myself in a world of stress and completely switched my project to computer programming, which is basically the opposite of woodwork. So I had to create an entirely new project in only a fraction of the time. But back to my project. I have been interested in computers, how they work, and computer programming ever since the first time I used one. By this time, I knew from my project I wanted to do something that included computers, but I wasn't sure how to make that a project, since one of my classmates had already made a computer for their project. It was then when I came across Arduino. Arduino is an open source electronics program that can help people like me who want to learn how to code or build computers, but have had very little experience. With Arduino, you can access instructions and code online for free, which really helped me because I wasn't able to find a mentor because of the coronavirus. I chose Arduino over Raspberry or Launchpad computers because though I've had experience with computers in the past, I had never actually attempted to make something from scratch, and Arduino seemed the most simple to learn quickly. Arduino is mostly used for building prototypes to prove that your idea works before you make the final product. For my research paper, I decided to research artificial intelligence. It is something that I recently discovered, and I immediately found myself wanting to know more about it. I researched and wrote about how AI has evolved over time and how it is used in our modern world today. So finally, for my physical project, I decided to combine computer programming and AI to make a remote control car. This is the remote control car I made. I also made a wireless remote that can transmit over 30 feet. I decided not to cover up the wiring because I think it's cool to see all the components needed to make it work. The parts I used include motors, motion detectors, throttles, and wireless transceivers, but the main component was the Arduino Uno board, which is the centerpiece of almost all projects. It's like the motherboard of a computer. This is the Arduino Uno board. It has many parts, and it can look really complicated at first, but once you get to know what all the different things do, it's not too bad. Another important part of any electronic engineering project, and is something that I used countless times in my experiments, is the breadboard, which is used at the early stages of a project before using the soldering iron to permanently link two wires together. On the right is the breadboard, and you can see all the little holes that you plug wires into. And on the left is the soldering iron, which is used to link two wires together permanently using heat. Probably the hardest part of my project, aside from only doing it in a couple of months, was trying to learn the code. For some reason, I thought that the code would be somewhat simple. I guess I was wrong. This is an image of what the code looks like, and I used code like this in pretty much all the projects and experiments I worked on. To wrap up my presentation, I want to show the first few things I created so you can get an idea of where I started. The first thing I made is a mini memory game. When you power it on, it will light up 2 lights in a specific order, and you have to click the corresponding buttons in that same order. The next time it will light up 3, and so on, kind of like Simon Says. The next thing I made is a motion detector that, well, detects motion. You can have it set off an alarm or turn on a light. The possibilities are endless. You can code it to do whatever you want. Just the click of a button with the light turning on can seem very basic, and it is, but it can lead to so many other unique things. I think the experience of making a project that was supposed to take almost a year, and I accomplished it in only a few months, really made me realize that I can make anything I want as long as I have determination and really try my hardest. I also think it's good for children and even adults to be exposed to things like this that bring you out of your comfort zone and bring out your creativity. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.
Absolutely incredible, Orion. Wonderful. Zoom applause for Orion. Wonderful, wonderful job. Wow. And Fiona, you're up.
Hello, my name is Fiona Weiss. I am 14 years old, and for the past 14 years of my life, I have loved to dance. Now, have you ever done something that was just a little bit out of your comfort zone, but then had it make you feel amazingly powerful? Well, for me, this is what dance is, time after time after time. It is working hard even when I am down, and pouring my heart and soul into something even when everyone is watching. Dancing in a group makes you feel part of something bigger than yourself, which is very important as a teenager. It also improves your mood, raises your pain tolerance, and teaches you to challenge yourself. Because without reaching farther than you think you can, not only will you not get more advanced at your passion, but I have found from my own experience that you won't stay in love with it. For a week or so, during quarantine this winter, I started to feel like I stopped enjoying dance classes. To compensate, I thought I would just try to work harder and do better during the next week, but it only made me feel worse. Only when I decided that I was going to let go of a bit of that discipline I had been so strongly enforcing on myself and just let myself have fun and enjoy class did I remember why I love dance so much. It is almost as if there is a loop. Dance, as well as other arts, sports, and academics, require discipline and commitment. But to want those things, you have to have a curiosity, a passion, and enjoy the activity. Together, in balance, they make something wonderful. However, leave one or the other out, and you may find yourself in a difficult position. For my 8th grade project, I chose to create a calendar with the photo of me dancing for each month. One of my mentors, Sol Nealman, took some of the photos for it. He is a professional sports photographer, and I'm very grateful for his assistance. My other mentor, Nicole Cuevas, has lots of professional dance experience and was a wonderful confidant. Here you can see the cover photo I chose for the calendar, as well as me working on it and putting it together. It has been a rough year, and the calendar sometimes reflects that, but also shows the joy that I feel in dancing. Having a passion is one of the things that has gotten me through this year. And although it is sometimes sad to dance in my bedroom, it has taught me a determination I am very grateful for. My favorite day working on this project was when me and my dad went to the cemetery to do a photo shoot for the month of October. The leaves on the trees were golden and red, and it was windy and extremely cold. We walked in, and I put on my point shoes, although thinking back on it, I have no idea why I thought it was a good idea to wear them in the grassy, muddy cemetery. I guess it was just worth it. We found a tree, and I started to dance around while my dad took photos. It was all going well until it started to pour, and I mean pour. Before we knew it, the rain had turned to hail, but I just kept noticing places that'd be amazing for photos and thinking of poses to do, and I just couldn't stop dancing. Finally, I gave in, pulled off my point shoes, and ran out of the cemetery and back to the car, just as it stopped hailing. This experience was so memorable to me because not only was it exciting, but it made me feel the most alive I have ever felt. I was also in my creative zone, just getting tons of ideas, and I went through with them, even when a part of me just wanted to run back to the car. It made me feel powerful and happy, and in the end, the photos were worth it. Throughout the course of working on my project, I learned the technical elements of turning the right photo into a piece of art and creating a calendar. But for me, the most interesting part of my project was creating the photos themselves, which allowed me to exercise and strengthen my creativity and boldness. Well, last year around this time, I was scared to take my shoes off for photos if anyone was in sight. I now have photos of myself crammed in between two grocery store shelves or waltzing across a crosswalk in only a leotard and pointe shoes. Although the photos did not always turn out, as you can see from the photo of me in the shelf, it was extremely developmental for me as a person. Although you may be thinking, that's great and all, but it's not like I can relate because I'm not a dancer. I am here to tell you otherwise. Although I had the privilege of experiencing these vitalizing, beautiful moments through dance, there are so many other ways to experience them. All it takes is to reach just a little bit farther than you think you can. I would like to leave you with the quote by Dorothea Jackson that expresses exactly what I want you to take away from this. Take passion and determination with you anywhere you go, and we promise you will go far. Thank you for listening.
Oh, Zoom applause for Fiona. Absolutely epic project. Wonderful, just wonderful. All right, Riley, take it away.
Hello. Present.
Yep, you're all set, Riley.
Hello, my name is Riley Lochran, and I will be presenting my 8th grade speech on FPV drones. How fast do you think a drone can fly? Take a moment to think about the answer in your head and hold it there. The actual answer is that the fastest drones can fly upwards of over 100 miles an hour, and someone made a drone out of mostly Legos, and it flew over 80 miles an hour. These unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs as they're called, are possible because of some very interesting physics and technology that allow anyone, with proper precautions, to essentially fly and have what I think is a very unique experience. To give the user the best experience from flying these drones, they use an onboard camera that streams a live video feed to goggles that you wear so that you can be immersed and focus on flying from a first-person view, or FPV. That's why they're called FPV drones. Most drones in general use a few main components to fly. There are 4 electric motors, which are controlled by an electronic speed controller, or ESC. There are batteries, which are used in powering the drone. There is the flight controller, which is the brain/motherboard of the drone. And there are a few other components that go into controlling and transmitting the video to and from the drone. To fly the drone, or any FPV drone really, there are a few necessary things, I think, to get the full experience. One thing you would probably need is the drone itself, which I actually have mine here. Another thing is some batteries to power it, a radio or controller, which you would use to control the drone. And if you want the full experience, from my point of view, you would also need goggles, which are used in seeing the video feed coming from the drone. Most FPV drones use what is called carbon fiber frames to be durable, yet so flexible when flying around very fast. Most of these drones also use LiPo batteries or lithium-ion batteries, which are necessary to spin the motors to high RPMs so the drone can go quickly. LiPo batteries are also used because they have a very high discharge to mass ratio, so they're very efficient essentially. Now, 10 years ago, I really never could have imagined that I would be flying through the air, mostly because I was around 3 years old. But anyways, when I first started flying, I wasn't very good. I was quite scared because it was hard to fly something that can break easily and is expensive. But after I got over this using a simulator, which also helped immensely in making me a much more proficient pilot, I was finally able to what I think is truly enjoy using and flying an FPV drone. Now, the next thing that I would like to show you is a clip of me flying in the simulator, which is this simulator right here. And here's the clip. I will commentate over the first parts of it. So in this first part, I am flying a drone which is more oriented toward cinematic flying and using like a GoPro if you were to fly this in real life. Now, while this is in the simulator, and this clip is from a drone which is more oriented towards fast-paced tricks and more technical and detailed flying. And so with that being the end of those clips, I would like to end my speech by saying thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. I also hope that you may take an interest in this wonderful hobby. Thank you, and good night.
All right, Zoom applause for Riley, taking us on that ride there, Riley. I feel like we all just went on the journey together. Wonderful job, really wonderful. And let's pass the baton to Marina.
Hello, my name is Marina Davis, and I'm going to be talking about what I've been doing for the past year, which happens to be animation, along with a report about climate change. This experience has been way more challenging than I thought it would be. In a world where we can't even go and see our friends anymore, I found it very hard to find inspiration, either in the biggest things or the smallest things. How many of you have found it hard to get up in the morning or even make breakfast? It was even harder because I chose to make my animation relating to climate change. I started my report in spring and started working on my animation around the same time. I never thought I would have to look up so many YouTube videos on how to make it and lose hope on so many instances. I found myself starting more projects than I finished. I still have so many drafts saved. If any of you have animated before, my respect goes out to you. I did not take into consideration how awful it would be. Have you ever thought about how long it takes to make an animation? Or a Disney movie, especially in the earlier times, animating on paper, drawing, by drawing, by drawing. I did an animation in the form of a deer's perspective, which might sound a bit weird. The deer I animated had lost their home and was being subjected to humans cutting it down and turning it into an industrial area. Drawing from a person or object's perspective that you can't experience was challenging, but overall, it was a fun project. I got to explore the ways people use their imagination and the technicalities that come with animating online. When I started researching climate change, I didn't take into consideration how depressing the topic would be also. From an outside perspective, it just seems like there are different and random things happening that might be related to it. But in general, it isn't just as simple as the earth heating up. When I was 10, I didn't know that cars were harmful. that the strawberries from overseas that I wanted had such a big carbon footprint. Oh, whoops. And here's the animation that I forgot to put in. When I was 10, I didn't know that cars were harmful, that the strawberries from overseas that I wanted had such a big carbon footprint. This is why I chose to talk about climate change and the state of the world we live in. This topic has been presented all around the world as a crisis and a thing we need to act upon. As Greta Thunberg said, since our leaders are behaving like children, we will have to take responsibility they should have taken long ago. I know that all of us can do so much more than what we're doing already. Many of you have probably heard about climate change in the news or on the television. How many of you have heard it mentioned? This is a problem that has been getting progressively worse over time. No, it's not the homework that you forgot to do last night that you're procrastinating on. It's not the nagging sensation of dread that you feel when your family tells you that your favorite cousin is coming to stay for a week. This is as important as your house going up in flames, as important as a relative dying. Climate change is an umbrella term, meaning that it holds lots of other topics that relate to it. For example, I also chose to research the Amazon rainforest and explore how it was being affected by the humans around it. It turned out that it was much more worse than I imagined. I was horrified to find out that the Amazon's trees were being cleared at about a rate of 5 football fields every minute. Most methods of clearing involved fire, which not only harmed the animals and ecosystem, but humans too. And here is a representation of the Amazon's tree covering from 1950 to 2020. You can just see it. It is drastically different, and it's just awful and tragic to see that. The Earth has a balance that it is struggling to upkeep, like a Jenga game where you're about to lose, a teetering tower. There are only about 3 molecules of carbon dioxide out of 1,000 of other elements in the air. If we had double that, I'm talking about only 6 out of 1,000, the Earth would be an inferno, a wasteland. As humans drive their cars, mass produce things, smelt, along with many other things, they produce carbon dioxide by burning fossil fuels. This carbon dioxide catches infrared rays that come down from the sun and keeps them there, generating more heat, and therefore affects the climate, like a greenhouse keeping heat in, the greenhouse effect. This creates problems that just continue to magnify each other. And to make it worse, relating to climate change, relating to the Amazon rainforest, trees are very important organisms that can absorb carbon dioxide in photosynthesis. The thing is, we're getting rid of one of our only sources of hope. Climate change is not a hopeful topic. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. I still contribute to the carbon footprint that everyone has. In so many ways, I am a hypocrite. I still get driven places. I still go on planes. This is what makes me the most sad about it. It's so difficult to stop doing something once it's convenient. I think that everyone would be more passionate about the subject if they're actually affected directly by it. Some of us are so privileged in this world. Even going to the school, I find myself very lucky. Whilst it may seem bleak and hopeless, there is still hope as more and more is being invested in ways to reduce emissions and leave the planet in a better way for future generations. We're all going to die someday, but in the long run, you have to try to make use of your life on this earth. All of you can contribute. Carpooling, eating local produce, and shopping local can all be very beneficial, even if it has a small impact. I encourage you all to learn more.
Wonderful report, Marina. Absolutely wonderful. And some Zoom applause for Marina, filling our screens. And we pass the torch to Adeline Ahrens.
Hello, my name is Adeline Aarons, and today I will be sharing about my 8th grade project. A quote I read once said, "The question is not can they reason, nor can they talk, but rather can they suffer." In March 2020, I began my 8th grade project, cake decorating. Though I was excited to learn about it, there was no other reason for it. Then, that July, I became vegan after seeing a horrifying video of how animals are treated in slaughterhouses. I decided to transition my project to vegan baking, to show people that you don't have to give up delicious baked goods to save animals. I wrote my report on the benefits of veganism. I realized how passionate I was about animal justice and animals being treated like living beings. Many people who eat meat, such as me previously, don't realize the cruel conditions animals have to endure before their untimely and painful death. Paul McCartney said, "If slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be vegetarian." The cruelty the animals suffer is hidden by large companies who are greedy for profit. Even if the package says cruelty-free, if an animal was killed or shoved into a tiny box for an extended amount of time, or separated from their mother as a baby, is it really cruelty-free? The meat and dairy industry not only harms animals, but the environment as well. As a matter of fact, animal agriculture is one of the main polluters of water, and though grass-fed animals are treated far more humanely than those on factory farms, this system is still terrible for the environment because of how much grain and water is given to the animals, which in turn means more animal waste. This food that is being fed to the animals in large amounts could be going towards people in poverty who don't have enough food. And the amount of land and water used to make just 1 pound of meat for consumption is staggering. Did you know it takes 1,800 gallons of water to produce just 1 pound of beef? My physical project was creating a vegan and gluten-free baking cookbook. I tested and adjusted recipes many times so they were just right. Many ingredients used in vegan baking may already be in your kitchen. For example, I learned that you could use flaxseed, applesauce, or even sometimes aquafaba to replace eggs. Yes, vegan baking is a little frustrating at first, but after a few tries, it becomes easier and turns out delicious. As you can see, both the environment and animals need our help. They have for a long time. We need to stop ignoring these problems and start finding solutions. I'm not asking you to completely change how you eat, but every little bit counts. If everyone in the United States went vegetarian for just 1 day a week, the US would save an estimated 100 billion gallons of water and 70 million gallons of gasoline per year. We need to give both animals and the environment the compassion and attention they deserve. Time is running out. We must do all that we can to make a positive impact. Thank you.
Oh, Adeline, that was incredible. Zoom applause for Adeline. Incredible. Big Zoom applause. Oh, wonderful. All right, Ada, you're up. It's all yours.
Hi, my name is Ada, and I did my project on the history of rowing. 3 years ago, I was really into rowing or ballet and never thought I'd be rowing. But now I'm obsessed. Rowing is a really fun sport that requires a lot of hard work and effort. I found rowing completely by accident. I needed to find a camp because my parents were working. My mom rowed when she was in college and thought I would like it, so she looked up rowing camps. She found a Learn to Row camp for a team called Oregon Rowing Unlimited, ORU. I participated in the camp and loved it. Then I joined the team. I've been rowing for a little over a year and a half, and both my mom and I were interested in buying a rowing shell. We talked about what to do for my 8th grade project, and I suggested building a rowing shell. My mom thought it was a little bit of a stretch, but after some discussion, I convinced her it was a good idea. My dad and I researched rowing shell kits and found one from a company called Chesapeake Lightcraft. We decided to buy a boat called the Oxford Rowing Shell 2. When we ordered the kit, I contacted the company and they gave me a discount because it was for a school project. When it arrived, I was so excited and started work right away. Since mid-July, I have been slowly working on my boat. It's a single person recreational rowing shell. It's not one of those super skinny ones people race in. My dad and I started building the boat, and at first it seemed really easy, but I have to admit, at times it was a bit irritating. I only could do one step per day because the epoxy I was using to glue the boat together took 24 hours to dry. As the project went on, it got harder and harder as we got to the steps that were more and more detailed. It also got more repetitive because we would have to do one side and then flip it and do the other side. But in the end, it was well worth it and a really fun project. This is my finished boat on the launch day. And not surprisingly, it was 50 degrees and pouring down rain the day we launched it. I was inspired to do this project by a book called The Boys in the Boat, mainly one of the characters whose name was George Yeoman Pocock. He founded Pocock Rowing in 1911, and that company is still around today. He provided many teams with rowing shells. One of them was the University of Washington's crew. They're an amazing team and have had 73 of their rowers make it to the Olympics. One of the times was in the book, when they made it to the 1936 Olympics and raced in front of Hitler. Before all these shenanigans started, rowing was a lot more simple. People discovered signs of rowing in ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome. People used it for transportation for themselves and things like food or clothing or short distances. First evidence of rowing as a sport came from an Egyptian carving in the tomb of Pharaoh Amenhotep II. Some other carvings showed team rowing using a coxswain, a leader that we use in boats today, who communicated using high-pitched calls similar to what we use today. Then in Rome, Virgil wrote of rowing in his poem, The Aeneid. He talked about someone dying, and one of the funeral celebrations was a rowing race. They had 4 boats in the race. Each boat had a coxswain and some rowers, but they don't say how many. I have not participated in funeral race, of course, but I have participated in 5 races. Sadly, I have not been able to do more because of COVID. My first race was on October 13th, 2019. I raced in a cock state for 5,000 meters. At the end of the race, the person in front of me caught a crab. A crab is where the oar gets caught in the current and falls next to the boat. It's very hard to correct quickly unless you stop the boat, but you can't stop in a race. We placed 7th out of 8 boats, which is pretty good for our first race. It was an exciting race, but also scary. 2 weeks later, I had my second race. This one was smooth and easy. We placed 3rd. The next race was inside on a rowing machine. This one was 500 meters long, which some people say is the hardest distance to race because it's right in the middle of sprinting the whole way and not sprinting the whole time. The next 2 races were during COVID. One was a 4,000 meter race, the other one was 2,000 meters, both raced on singles. Hopefully, I will be able to participate in more races soon. Thanks so much for listening.
Oh, absolutely incredible, Ada. Zoom applause for Ada, everyone. Oh, wonderful job. Wonderful. And we'll pass the baton to Rose.
Hello, my name is Rose O'Neill, an 8th grader at Cedarwood Waldorf School. Today, I'm here to talk about my 8th grade project, equine therapy. Among my friends and classmates, I have been the horse girl from the start. Many of them probably know much more about horses from me than they ever wanted to. I remember one time when I was given a free class and told I could read any book I wanted to, I chose a horse encyclopedia. I have always wanted to give back to horses, especially after I started taking regular riding lessons at 8 years old. This is one of the main reasons I chose equine therapy for the topic of my 8th grade report. I was lucky enough to be able to do some service work for my project and had a lot of fun doing it. My first work was at a place called Zeb's Wish, which is an amazing equine rescue facility. And my other volunteering experience was at Econi, a summer camp some of you may have heard of. I went to Econi for about 4 years before COVID and had signed up for a camp this last summer, but it was canceled. So I was very excited when I heard about a socially distant teen work party and immediately signed up. Honestly, The written report was one of my favorite parts of this project. It took me a long time to complete, but it was fun. As part of my research, I read a book called Joey. Joey is a true story about, as the cover says, how a blind horse helped others learn to see. It was an amazing and incredibly sad tale that taught me about how a human can save the life of a horse, and in turn, a horse can save the life of a human. My project is about this relationship, the age-old one between horse and human. When we started thinking about our 8th grade projects, I immediately knew mine would have something to do with horses. And from there, it didn't take long to decide on equine therapy. Many of you have probably heard of equine therapy facilities. If not, they are places where disabled people can go and receive equine aid. Sometimes this is in the form of riding, brushing, or even just being around horses. It has been proven to be very effective, and it is recommended by many therapists. Equines can also help people who are just having a bad day or going through a difficult period in their lives. I know that going to horseback riding really helps me focus and not worry about schoolwork or anything else, because with horses, you have to be very in the present. A quote I once heard that I thought represented the bond between horse and human quite beautifully was, "Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Walk beside me, just be my friend." So now that we've talked a little about how horses can help humans, let's talk some about how people can help horses in return. First of all, you can thoroughly brush, feed appropriately, give vet checks, and regular exercise. However, personally, I think that if you buy a horse, all of these things should just be a given. To help them beyond basic care, you can hang out with them, read a book in their stall, give them treats, and make sure they have plenty of time in a pasture to move about as they please. For me, the physical project was one of the hardest parts. For a while, I didn't know what to do. Then my family found a 5-acre piece of land and started looking at buying it. It has a large field in the back that looks just perfect for horseback riding. I started thinking about designing a cross-country course in the back of my field for my project and making blueprints. I probably walked the length of that field 6 times up and down and many, many times across. Then I started drafting at our office. My dad taught me a lot about how to scale it right, how to use all the tools, and the different things I needed to add to make it a proper blueprint. I came to love this and has been one of my favorite parts of this project. So remember, horses require a lot of attention, money, and energy. If you are thinking about purchasing a horse, make sure you consider all the elements of care. However, horses can be the most amazing companions ever. You know that saying about how dogs are man's best friend? Well, who carried us and pulled carriages for all those years before cars? How would we have gotten around without horses? They are an amazing species and deserve everything we can give them. Thank you.
Oh, Rose, amazing. Let's give Rose some Zoom applause, everyone. Give Rose some energy. Oh, that was absolutely wonderful. Really good job. And we'll pass the baton over to Aluki. Go ahead and start your project.
Hello, my name is Aluki, and I did my project on the Russian Revolution. Many of you probably know the story of Rasputin, the mad monk, as he is often called, though he was neither of these things, who was a healer to the Tsar and was notoriously difficult to kill. I did my project on early 20th century Russia in general, and for my physical project, I made a fashionable evening gown of the 1910s. For my speech, I thought I would give an overview of the assassination and try to clear up several misconceptions. Russia at this time was using an imperial system of government with a large class divide between the aristocracy and the peasantry. The Tsar was Nicholas II, who tragically only had one son who carried a blood disease known as hemophilia. There was no known cure, and Rasputin was a faith healer who claimed to be able to cure the boy, and through a mixture of placebos and other causes, he seemed to be able to do this. Many did not like Rasputin among the aristocracy, for they felt that he was taking away their power. One of these was Felix Yusupov, pictured here on the far right with his wife, Irina Alexandrovna, who is the niece of Tsar Nicholas II. Another, pictured on the left, is Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, who is the Tsar's cousin. Dmitry's involvement in the assassination, along with Yusupov, was rather dubious, as he was close with the family. The general theory for his involvement states that he did not like Rasputin and disapproved of him, which is probably true. However, it is hard to believe that Dmitry would put his own cousin, who he was very close with, in danger by killing Rasputin. Another theory, which I find more compelling, is that he was having an affair with Yusupov, which was discovered by Rasputin, who was threatening to tell the imperial family. It is known that they had a relationship that was broken off by the Tsar, and that they continued to see each other after this happened. If Rasputin revealed this information, it would be politically devastating for both of them, and for the image of the monarchy itself through Dmitry. Against this theory is that if Rasputin did have this information, it is likely that he would not go to Yusupov's house, where the assassination was, alone and unprotected, as he was generally not a fool. Here is Rasputin. From now on, I shall be talking about the assassination itself, so I must disclaim that all sources come from the killers, who are generally not very reputable, reputable or reliable. The theory of why Rasputin showed up fits with one of the theories of why Rasputin showed up fits with the earlier theory of Felix and Dmitry's affair. If Felix claimed that he repented his relationship and wished Rasputin to heal him, then he could have invited Rasputin to his house under the pretense of this, of some sort of medical appointment. This theory seems likely, or perhaps Felix feigned any sort of trivial illness. There are other theories, of course, but these are the most compelling. Next, we shall discuss what happened in the cellar where Rasputin was allegedly brought on his arrival at the Yusupov mansion in December of 1916. In this room at about midnight, he was supposedly fed cake and wine, which were laced with poison. If those were indeed laced with poison, which was allegedly cyanide, there are several reasons why it may not have taken effect, as was claimed. One was that it was expired or an insufficient dose. Another is that it simply didn't happen. Another theory is that because Rasputin was an alcoholic, he lacked the stomach acid necessary to convert the cyanide to its deadly form. Whatever happened, what happens next is more dubious, as there was supposedly some sort of chase and several gunshots. Different accounts of the killers claim that different people shot him, but all of the killers' accounts only mention 2 shots. None of the accounts mention a shot to the forehead, which is revealed in his autopsy picture, which I have not included in this slideshow, which was likely what killed him. The question of who shot this is a great mystery. Could someone who was there possibly have shot him and not realized that they shot him in the head? or was it British intelligence, which is another theory that I could go into. In any case, they dumped him into a river where he was discovered several days later. None of the killers faced any major consequences due to their high ranking status within the aristocracy. I hope you understand the complexity of these events, if not these events themselves. I don't know if anyone other than Yusupov, who died in 1967, or his conspirators, who are also currently deceased, will fully know what happened, but I hope you understand that it's more complicated than the general cultural narrative.
Congratulations, Aluki, on your project. Huge applause for Aluki. Wonderful. And we'll pass the baton to Bailey.
Okay. Oops, this is the wrong one. Sorry.
No problem at all. You just take a minute to get ready.
Okay, here we go.
Excellent. It's all yours, Bailey.
Okay. Hi, my name is Bailey. I'm 14 years old and I have been attending Cedarwood for the past 9 years. What does music mean to you? Asking this question to people is a great way to witness many diverse perspectives and answers. Music is a way for all of us to express ourselves without really having to put ourselves out there for judgment. Unless, of course, the way music calls to you is the actual writing, production, or performance of music. For my project, I wrote and recorded my own music. I took voice lessons and learned how to play the guitar. I also learned about how music affects us. When you listen to music, your brain releases a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical that makes you feel happy. Sometimes I feel alone, or like no one in the world understands me. And then I realize that there are 10 or more songs based on other people feeling that same way. Raise your hand if you have ever experienced this feeling. For me, it feels like a combination of being understood and of belonging. Something I've experienced during my time at this school, and really growing up in general, is the need to fit in. Fitting in is something many young adults and children struggle with, because there is something comforting about being exactly the same. The fear of standing out in a bad way often prevents us from wanting to stand out at all. Individuality is extremely important in music because if you aren't different, then no one will notice you as being unique. What listeners crave the most is something new, something different. Even the very principle of making music is to invent something that hasn't been introduced yet. And that feeling, that vulnerability, is at the core of every new song. Even if you only sing songs that already exist, like a cover or a remix, you're still putting your voice up there for consideration, and again, judgment. Making my own music has forced me to step out of my comfort zone and to be brave. I love bravery because it is the act of walking through fear. Without fear, bravery is just safety, security. To be brave is to feel the fear and to do it anyway. I don't really like to admit it, but I've struggled a lot with my inner critic. I still do. It's a major side effect of having anxiety. But if I can let go of my own self-doubt for about 3 minutes, I'm able to create an extension of myself. I can put a piece of myself out there and on display. Like any other language, continued exposure to music will result in a better understanding of it. It is all around you, all the time, in the form of sound. The sounds my throat and vocal cords are producing right now. The sounds your feet make when you walk to and from the now familiar places in your house. The slight sounds your body makes when you eat, breathe, and even blink. Sound is all around us. We tune it out constantly. But I challenge you all to stop and listen during these next few weeks, to just take a minute and listen. Not to that worried what if inside you, and not to the voice telling you you aren't good enough, but to your own voice. I hope you'll explore this amazing device attached to the front of your face that allows you to make sound.
Try singing for someone if you can, or even just for your reflection. Dancing in the mirror is something I do all the time. Sing really badly, sing really well. Try to learn the difference. Music communicates directly with the soul. It fills the heart and provides the brain something to analyze, but ultimately it feeds the soul. Do you know why? Because it is pure empathy. The difference between empathy and sympathy is the ability to accept feelings as they are. Sympathy is to feel bad for someone and to then try to replace their negative emotions with positive emotions. Empathy is to feel bad for someone and to be able to feel their feelings along with them, to offer to be sad with them, to say the words, "me too." Music carries no judgment. It may be paired with judgmental words or lyrics, but underneath them is still that beautiful thing that actively makes you happier. Music is the ultimate empathizer. In a world of darkness, music turns on a light. When you're standing alone in the rain and everyone else is telling you that, at least it's not snowing, music will stand beside you asking, "May I join you?" And do you know what music says next? It says, "Here, would you like to share my umbrella?" Thank you. And now I am going to share with you the song that, here we go, that I wrote and recorded for my project. I hope you enjoy.
To hide anytime you feel despised. No, I will always be on your side. You may think you're lost, but I'm not far behind. Never out of time. The voices in your head, they say they want you dead. Show them the man behind the mask. Emotions are real. Tell me how you feel. We can just lie here, safe at last. When you are without a view, you can use my sight to see through. Anytime I find my world has gone askew, I'm here because of you. Hiding from your mind, you can take your time. I'll stay right here and wait for you. Don't need no one else. You can save yourself, but I'll be the shield protecting you. You don't have to be afraid. You know that it's never too late. I can tell that you're in pain, heavy head from hurt and shame. Not the only one to blame.
Did it stop? Sorry.
Beautiful. Let's give Bailey, a huge round of Zoom applause. Absolutely incredible. I'm gonna have to grab a tissue, Bailey. Really beautiful, just beautiful. Don't you stress at all about those tech pieces. We're going to be able to hear that song again, as well as see everyone's websites and such on our 8th grade project website as well. We'll pass the baton now to Evan. Take it away, Evan.
I want you to take a moment to think to yourself, what did you just hear? My name is Evan Margolin, and I have dyslexia, so reading is a challenge for me. Luckily, I have found from an early age what keeps me motivated to stay in school, that is sports. Sports such as basketball, soccer, and tennis. But what I am really here to talk about today is ping pong. I chose to focus on ping pong for my 8th grade project because I was in an argument about the rules and wanted to learn more about it. I won that argument. I'm curious, how many of you have ever played ping pong and know all the crazy rules this sport has? I have been playing a number of sports from an early age. Along the journey, I discovered the amazing sport of ping pong and have been interested in it ever since. As I started to get more into it, I wanted to learn what all the different shots were called. Some of what I would like to share with you today is a brief history of ping pong. I will demonstrate some different techniques and rules for playing. Ping pong today is played for fun by almost everyone across the world, in almost every country. Many countries have teams that play in the Olympics. When a player from the US plays in South Africa, the equipment and rules will be familiar. In the late 19th century, in wealthy homes in England, what we now know as the game of ping pong, or table tennis, was invented by bringing lawn tennis indoors during the cold wintry months. Before 1920, this game was played under local rules that varied from location to location and time to time. In 1926, the rules of ping pong were standardized, which led to ping pong becoming a professional sport. In the 1950s, ping pong became very popular in China, Japan, and Korea. It became so popular in China that during the 1970s and 80s, China dominated the sport. The Swedish team ended that domination during the 1988 World Championships. Ping pong is still widely popular and became an Olympic sport in 1989. And the ping pong paddle that you see on your screen now, I made, and I can play with it. Yeah. It's fully functional. A serve is where you start a point, and you have to have your hand flat and throw it at least 6 inches in the air, just like this. In doubles, you have to serve cross court. In singles, you do not. You can serve it anywhere. The shots of ping pong are simple. It's a backspin ball, top spin ball, or a lob if you're doing a defensive shot. Techniques. So a top spin ball is, I hold the paddle like this. This is how most of the pros hold it. And how I hit it is I hit it with a little bit of top spin on the ball, so I don't hit the square middle of it. So I hit the top of the ball so it goes over there. I do backspin, the exact same hold or grip, if you want to say it that way, as I do the top spin ball. So I got a ball here, and how I cut is like that. So I hit the bottom of the ball instead of the top of it. So I hit the bottom of the ball, so it goes back So, a lob is a defensive shot. When your opponent hits a hard top spin ball, you want to return with a lob, so it's hard for your opponent to return it, just like what just happened. The game is played to 11, and you have to win by 2. In professional ping pong, to win a whole match, you have to win a best of 7 series, which means the first one to 4 wins. Thank you for listening to my speech and watching my video. I hope this has encouraged you to play ping pong. Thank you.
Fantastic, Evan. Congratulations. Wonderful. And it's always hard to be the very first presenter, but it's also always hard to be the very last presenter. And so I just want to thank Quinn for being last to go, and they're going to share their video now. Take it away, Quinn.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. My name is Quinn and this is my speech. Before I begin, I would like to ask you some questions. How many of you has ever read a book before? A silly question, I know, bear with me. But now, how many of you has ever read fantasy or consumed fantasy media? When you think of fantasy, what image pops into your mind? Maybe you think of dragons, knights in shining armor, magical far-off lands, or perhaps you think of superheroes fighting villains to save the universe from destruction. Now, what if I told you that behind all of these magical lands is a person just like you and me? What if I told you that behind Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia is one or another brilliant mind? Now, if you still think that isn't a big deal, let me tell you that in, say, the world of Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth, there's a bunch of history to the point of there being an actual history book. It's called the Silmarillion. And besides just history, every species, whether it be dwarves, orcs, or elves, has its own fully functioning language that Tolkien made up himself. I mean, I should know, I'm trying to learn one of them. It's not going very well, but I'm trying. There is so much thought put into fantasy worlds that's just taken for granted. So I took it upon myself to create a high fantasy world of my own called Helios. Many times I thought of giving up and starting a new project, but I'm so glad that I stuck with this because I've learned so much through my experiences with this project. Ever since I was a child, I was obsessed with fantasy. For me, it was the only way storytelling should ever be, and anything nonfiction was absolutely appalling to me. To this day, I'm still not a huge non-fantasy reader, although I will dabble on occasion. During the beginning of my project, I had a difficult time zoning in on a specific topic. I knew I wanted to do something fantasy related, but I didn't know what or how. At this point, I had a vague idea on the physical project, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with my report. At first, I was going to do it on the life and work of J.R.R. Tolkien, but that it felt stretched and boring as I didn't have enough material to go through and I only got 2 pages in. So instead, I refocused my lens and went to the bigger picture. Now, instead of focusing on one author, I focused on all of them. My project went from the life and work of J.R.R. Tolkien to the history of fantasy in the 20th and early 21st century. This change was great, and in many ways, it brought my project to life, although it didn't come without its fair share of challenges. One of the biggest obstacles for my physical project was simply motivation. At this point, I was tired of the project and I wanted to do something new.
If you know me outside of school, you would know that I have a habit of starting projects yet never finishing them, which is a luxury that I didn't have this time. What I ended up creating was a book of illustrations focusing on the deities of the world I created called Helios. The mortals of Helios are split up into two categories, I guess, if you will, humans and magics, with a long history of strife between them. The focus of my book was the 13 major deities of Helios, illustrations of them, and a little bit about who they are and their history. It was really fun for me to think of how this world worked and how all these powerful deities related, loved, hated, battled, and married each other. It was neat to create a map of the world they lived in and consider the intricacies of Helios and how it runs differently from the other worlds. I also created illustrations of the fashion that the humans and magics wear on Helios, a variety of looks from peasant to nobles. I'll let you know a little secret about me. I prefer the noble magic, like outfits way better, and you should too because they're superior. Over the many years, the world of fantasy has grown, and the world of representation has grown with it. Now, fantasy isn't just about some straight white man going to save the damsel in distress. Now, it's much, much more open to minorities all over the world. And now, anyone who reads fantasy can probably find an amazing book that they can relate to. And that really means something to me. So I wanted to do something like that to the best of my abilities. I wanted to do that with my world Helios because it's really nice to find a character or someone you relate to in the pages of a book. Fantasy isn't just about cool superpowers and epic battles. It's an amazing way to find light in the world and relate to others around you. I will always love fantasy, and the human mind will never cease to amaze me. Thank you all for coming or watching this, and have a great day.
Incredible. Let's give some Zoom applause for Quinn. Wonderful job. They did an incredible presentation there as our grand finale. If you are interested in reading these comics, seeing the websites, watching the videos, hearing the songs, you may go to www.cedarwoodSchool.org/8th-grade-projects, or just go to the Cedarwood website and go into events, and it's going to lead you right to the 8th grade project page where you'll see each of the amazing students you watched tonight with links to their work and photos of their work and their little description as well in there. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This was a culmination of a year-long project, and I feel like there's virtual fireworks going off all around us right now. 8th grade, we are so proud of you. One more huge Zoom round of applause for the 8th grade class with their 8th grade projects finished in the year 2021. Woo! Have a good night, everyone. Wonderful job.
Congratulations. Nice job, 8th graders.
Thanks,
This was
Miss
so
Norman.
Wonderful job. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiama Sensei.
Yay.
Good job, 8th grade.
Yeah.
Good work, 8th graders.
Great work.
Hello there.
Great job, you guys. Great job.
Oh my God.
Hey, Duncan, play a song first for those that want to stay on for a little while.
Play a song.
Oh my God.
We're all so proud of you. Amazing work.
Right.
Encore.
Nice job, grade 8. Mama Tiff still loves
Thank you, Miss Tiffany. Mama Tiffany came. Oh my goodness.
Well, thank you, Mama Tiff.
Oh, heart
Love you guys.
Love you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Blazer. Good seeing you.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Duncan, where's the encore?
Oh,
My
well,
face-
I mean, I don't have my guitar with me right now, but if I did, I would. Yeah.
Duncan, we want you to post one of your songs to the Cedarwood website. Put one
Definitely
up there.
will. Absolutely will.
We want to hear that pedal in action.
Totally.
Duncan,
Absolutely.
you can
Duncan, you can do some self-promotion right now. Go tell everyone to listen to you on like
Okay, sure.
Esty, way to look out for your friends. Managers get a percentage cut, you know.
So, like I said in my speech, you can find me on any major listening platform under the name Duncan McClellan. Yeah, go check me out if you want.
And do a duet.
Hear you right now.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Thank
night.
you for coming.
Release your new album, Duncan.
What do you say?